How are you guys doing? Today is Saturday, March 26th, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to preview the Elite 8 round for the 2022 men's bracket, as we are halfway through the second weekend of March Madness, and we are roughly halfway through March Madness schedule speaking, because it is 3 different weekends. We're halfway through the second, as we are now through the first 3 rounds of the tournament, even if you include the first 4 teams and you include the 68. There have been 60 teams that have been eliminated contention, as only 8 teams are remaining left to compete for the 2022 tournament. As we have the American Conference champs, the Big East champs competing in this tournament. Not to mention now we also have the Big 12 champs, and we also have the champs of the Mid-Atlantic Athletic Conference in this tournament, as well as we have 5 teams that were champions within their own conferences coming in. We have one seed coming into this bracket out of the 8. There are 2 seeds. We have 1 4 seed remaining, being Arkansas. We have a 5 seed, an 8 seed. We even have a couple of double-digit seeds as we enter this part of the bracket, as well as the only seed that repeats is the 2 seed. But of course, I'm going to preview all 4 of the games as we get into this round, and by doing so, of course, I'm going to review the 3 games that each team had to win to get here. As of course, from here on out, the champion has to win 3 more games from here on out in order to win this tournament. So the first game that's going to be played in this Elite 8 will be played today on TBS in AT&T Center in San Antonio. In the South Regional Final, the 2-seed Villanova Wildcats, who won the Big East, are going to host the 5th-seed Houston Cougars. Taking a look first at how the 2-seed Villanova Wildcats would make it here. In their first matchup, they would face off against 15-seed Delaware, as this matchup itself would be taken place as the Villanova Wildcats would beat 15-seed Delaware in Pittsburgh. That's where the first couple matchups were. They won this game by 20, and in this matchup, they would go on to be led in scoring by their starting guard, Justin Moore. Their starting junior out of Fort Washington, Maryland, would finish with 21 points and 6 rebounds in this matchup to get them to the second round. Once they made it to the second round in Pittsburgh, they would go on to face off against the 7-seed Ohio State Buckeyes, and they would go on to beat the 7-seed Buckeyes by 10 in the second round to make it out of the first weekend. In the second game, they were led in scoring by their starting guard, the Big East Player of the Year this year, Colin Gillespie, their senior out of Huntington Valley, Pennsylvania, would finish with 20 points to help Villanova make it to the Sweet 16 round. And then, of course, a couple of days ago, Villanova would go on to beat 11-seed Michigan, as that matchup took place in San Antonio. And in this matchup, they would beat the 11-seed Wolverines by 8. In this particular matchup, they would outscore the Wolverines by 5 in the second half to increase their 3-point lead that they had at halftime. In this matchup, Villanova would be led in scoring by their starting senior out of Franklin, Massachusetts, Jermaine Samuels. He will go on to finish with 22 points himself. And with this win, that is how Villanova would make it to this round. And then even taking a look at their opponents in this matchup, the 5-seed Houston Cougars, who ended up winning the American Athletic Conference, who won their own bracket after beating Memphis, would start this tournament facing off against the 12-seed UAB Blazers, as their first matchup was in Pittsburgh. They would end up beating 12-seed UAB by 14. They won 82-68. As in this matchup, the 5-seed Cougars would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Kyler Edwards. Their senior out of Arlington, Texas, would finish with 25 points and 7 rebounds in this first matchup. Houston would then advance to the second round of this tournament while this matchup was still in Pittsburgh. They would beat 4-seed Illinois by 15. They won this matchup 68-53. And in this matchup, they would actually be led in scoring by their starting guard, Taze Moore. Their guard, their senior out of South Haven, Mississippi, will go on to finish with 21 points, 7 rebounds, and a couple of steals. With this win, Houston was able to advance to the Sweet 16. And then a couple of days ago, they would face off against the 1 seed in this bracket, the Arizona Wildcats. And they would go on to beat Arizona in San Antonio by 12. They won it 72-60. In this matchup, they would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Jamal Sheed. Their sophomore out of Manor, Texas, would go on to finish with 21 points and 6 assists, as well as 5 turnovers, as he played nearly all 40 minutes of the game. So that is going to be the very first matchup of the Elite Eight, as the winner of this matchup will be the team to represent the South region in the Final Four. The winner of this matchup will face off against the winner of the Midwest Elite Eight matchup. This will take place tomorrow, as it will feature the only 1 seed left in this bracket, the Kansas Jayhawks. The Big 12 champions will face off against the Miami Hurricanes. Taking a look at how these two teams would make it here, first looking at Kansas, after they ended up winning their Big 12 championship game against Texas Tech. They would face off against 16 seed Texas Southern in the very first round, as their first matchup was in Fort Worth, Texas. They would end up beating 16 seed Texas Southern by 27. They would be led in scoring this game by their guard off the bench, Remy Martin, as their senior out of Burbank, California, will go on to finish with 15 points and a couple of steals for himself. With this win, Kansas would make it to the second round. In the second round, they face off against 9 seed Creighton, after Creighton had beaten San Diego State in the first round. Kansas would end up beating Creighton by 7 in the second round, and in this matchup, they would go on to be led in scoring by their guard out of Burbank, Remy Martin again. He had 20 points and 7 rebounds. After these 2 wins, Kansas would make it out of their first weekend in Fort Worth to make it to the Sweet 16. And in the Sweet 16 matchup that they would end up playing yesterday, they would end up beating Providence by 5. They won it 66-61 after outscoring Providence by 9 in the first half. They would be led in scoring by their guard off the bench out of Burbank, Remy Martin, as he had 23 points and 7 rebounds. Their forward, Jalen Wilson, had 16 points and 11 rebounds in this game, as he had a double-double to help Kansas make it to this Elite Eight matchup. And then taking a look at Kansas's opponent in this round, they're going to be facing off against the Miami Hurricanes. They met their end in the ACC tournament after they lost to Duke, but of course Miami has been virtually underestimated in every game they've played so far. Their first matchup would end up being a win they would end up winning in the first round in Greenville, South Carolina, against 7 seed USC. They would win this game by 2 after they were led in scoring by their starting guard, Isaiah Wong. Isaiah Wong would go on to finish with 22 points himself. Once Miami would make it through this first round, they would face off against 2nd seed Auburn in the second round. This would end up being one of the bigger upsets of the tournament, as they beat 2nd seed Auburn by 18 points. In this matchup, they would be led in scoring by Isaiah Wong again, as he had 21 points and 16 rebounds. Cameron McGusty, their other starting guard, had 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 steals in 38 minutes to help Miami make it through that first weekend. Once they made it to their Sweet 16 matchup yesterday, they would go on to face off against 11 seed Iowa State, as this particular matchup took place in Chicago. And in this matchup last night, 10 seed Miami would beat 11 seed Iowa State by 14. They won this game 70-56. They were led in scoring by their starting guard, Cam McGusty, as Cameron McGusty, their senior out of Katy, Texas, would go on to finish with 27 points and 6 rebounds, as well as 4 steals, as he played nearly all 40 minutes. With this win, that is how Miami would advance to this Elite Eight matchup, where they will face off against Kansas. This matchup is slated for tomorrow at 2:20. It is the first of the 2 games, and the winner of this matchup will face off against the winner of the South region between 2 seed Villanova, who won the Big East, and 5 seed Houston, who ended up winning the American Athletic Conference. But first, the Big 12 champs, Kansas, have to make it through the Miami Hurricanes, who have proven to be a very tough opponent, at least at this point in the schedule. Taking a look at the second game that's going on today, Looking at the West Regional Final taking place in the Chase Center in San Francisco, California. The 2-seed Duke Blue Devils, representing my alma mater, Duke University, are going to be facing off against the 4-seed Arkansas Razorbacks in the West Regional Final. Looking first at how Duke was able to make it here, they were able to win their first two matches, make it through their first weekend in Greenville, South Carolina. In their first matchup, they would beat 15-seed Cal State Fullerton by 18. They would outscore Cal State Fullerton by 10 in the first half, as they were led in scoring by their freshman forward, Paolo Banchero. Banchero had 17 points and 10 rebounds to help Duke make it to the second round. In the second round, they would end up beating the 7-seed Michigan State Spartans. They won this game by 9, as in this matchup, Paolo Banchero would lead the way with 19 points as well as 7 rebounds. And he also had 5 turnovers to help the team make it all the way through their first weekend. Once they made it into the Sweet 16 in San Francisco, a couple of days ago, they ended up having to face off against Texas Tech. And against the 3-seed Texas Tech Red Raiders in San Francisco, they would end up beating the Big 12 runners-up by 5. They won it 78-73 after outscoring Texas Tech by 9 in the second half. They would go on to be led in scoring by their starting forward, Paolo Banchero. He had 22 points and 3 steals in the 37 minutes that he played, as of course he's showing that he is one of the best draft prospects in college, as well as one of the best players overall in this tournament. And that is how Duke would make it here. And taking a look at how their opponents would make it here, looking at the 4-seed Arkansas Razorbacks, after the Razorbacks finished their SEC tournament losing to Texas A&M. Their first matchup in this tournament would be against the 13-seed Vermont Catamounts, as their first matchup was in Buffalo. Their first weekend was in Buffalo. In their first matchup versus Vermont, they would go on to win this game by 4. In this matchup, they were led in scoring by their starting guard, Stanley Umude. Stanley Umude, their senior from San Antonio, Texas, would go on to finish with 21 points and also 9 rebounds, as he played all 40 minutes to make it through this first round. In Arkansas's second matchup in this tournament, they would face off against 12-seed New Mexico State, as this matchup was also taking place in Buffalo. They would beat 12-seed New Mexico State by 5 after outscoring them by 9 in the first half. 4-seed Arkansas would be led in scoring by their starting guard, J.D. Note, their starting senior out of Covington, Georgia. He would go on to finish with 18 points and 8 steals in this second round matchup, as he played 31 minutes, shooting 5 for 18 from the field. Also, their starting forward, Jalen Williams, would finish with 10 points and 15 rebounds in 40 minutes, as their sophomore from Fort Smith, Arkansas, would help the Razorbacks make it through their first weekend and make it into the Sweet 16. A couple of days ago, right before Duke beat Texas Tech, they would end up beating the number 1 seed in the West bracket, the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Arkansas would end up beating Gonzaga by 6 after they outscored Gonzaga by 3 in both halves of this matchup. They would be led in scoring by their starting guard out of Covington, Georgia, J.D. Note, as he had 21 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals, as well as 2 blocks in 38 minutes. He shot 9 for 29 from the field. And then their starting forward out of Arkansas, Jalen Williams, finished with 15 points and 12 rebounds in the Sweet 16 matchup. So, of course, next Arkansas is slated to face off against Duke in this Elite 8 matchup. And the winner of this matchup will face off against the winner of the second matchup tomorrow, as Duke's rival, the North Carolina Tar Heels, are going to face off against the 15-seed St. Peter's Peacocks in Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. Taking a look at how these two teams got to the Eastern Region Final, the 8-seed North Carolina Tar Heels, after falling short in the ACC tournament to Virginia Tech, the eventual champs, they would go on to win their first game of the tournament against 9-seed Marquette in Fort Worth, Texas. In this first matchup, they would end up beating the Eagles by 32. In this matchup, the Tar Heels would go on to be led in scoring by their starting forward Brady Manick. He had 28 points and 11 rebounds. Their starting guard Caleb Love had 23 points in 34 minutes. Their guard out of St. Louis. And with this win, North Carolina was able to make it to the second round, where they would pick up the big win of their bracket at least to date. They would beat the 1 seed Baylor Bears in the second round. They would make sure that Baylor would be the first 1 seed knocked out of the tournament, as they won this game by 7 in overtime. The Tar Heels would be led in scoring by their starting guard, R.J. Davis. Their sophomore out of White Plains, New York, would finish with a 30-piece, as he had 30 points, 5 points, and 6 assists in 45 minutes, shooting 8 for 17 from the field, 5 for 10 from 3, and 9 for 10 from the foul line. Their starting forward out of Oklahoma, Brady Manick, their senior, will go on to finish with 26 points and 5 rebounds in this game. And then their forward out of Virginia, Armando Bacot, finished with 15 points and 6 rebounds alongside 3 blocks, as he played 39 minutes. With this win in the second round, North Carolina would advance to the Sweet 16. In their matchup, they would have to face off against 4-seed UCLA last night, and they would end up beating 4-seed UCLA by 7. They won this game 73-66 after outscoring UCLA by 10. And they would go on to be led in scoring by their starting guard, Caleb Love. Their sophomore out of St. Louis would go on to finish with a 30-piece. He finished with 30 points in 40 minutes, shooting 11 for 24 from the field, 6 for 13 from 3, making both of his free throws. Their starting forward, Armando Bacot, finished with 14 points and 15 rebounds, as the junior from Richmond, Virginia, would also play a very big part in the North Carolina Tar Heels making it here. And they're going to face off against the Cinderella of all Cinderellas, St. Peter's, coming out of New Jersey, will go on to win the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference in order to make the tournament itself as a 15 seed in St. Peter's very first matchup of the season. Or I guess in their first matchup of the tournament, they would end up upsetting the 2-seed Kentucky Wildcats in overtime, beating them 85-79, which was the defining game of St. Peter's tournament, at least coming into today. In that first matchup, they would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Daryl Banks III. Their junior out of Los Angeles would finish with 27 points in 37 minutes, as he shot 9 for 19 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. Their guard off the bench, Doug Edert, out of Nutley, New Jersey, would finish with 20 points himself, as he would go on to play 25 minutes. He shot 5 for 7 from the field, shot a perfect 2 for 2 from 3, and a perfect 8 for 8 from the foul line. With this win, St. Peter's would advance to the second round of this tournament while still in Indianapolis, and they would face off against the 7-seed Murray State Racers. They would beat Murray State by 10 in the second round to make it through their first weekend. In this matchup, they were led in scoring by their starting forward, Casey Ndifo. Their senior out of Elmont, New Jersey, will go on to finish with 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 blocks in this game. He shot 5 for 10 from the field and 7 for 9 from the free throw line to help St. Peter's make it to the Sweet 16. And in their Sweet 16 matchup yesterday, they would end up beating the 3rd seed Purdue Boilermakers in Philly, 67-64. That was the first game of the day. St. Peter's would end up winning this game by 3, as they were led in scoring by their starting guard, Daryl Banks III. Their junior out of LA would go on to finish with 14 points in 28 minutes, shooting 6 for 14 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, St. Peter's will face off against North Carolina, as that matchup will be taking place tomorrow at 5:05. The winner of that matchup will face off against the winner of Duke and Arkansas, as the only team in that matchup that would have won their tournament going in would be St. Peter's, as this also has an opportunity for Duke to face off against North Carolina after the incredible season that they've had against one another. But of course, there will be 4 games between today and tomorrow to determine the 4 teams that will be playing in the Final Four in New Orleans. So, of course, it'll be a very interesting road from here on out. Once these 2 matchups are played, I'm going to do a preview for the Final Four right before the Final Four gets started. And, of course, with that said, I do want to thank the ESPN and NCAA websites for giving me all the facts and figures that I needed for this episode. I do apologize for the names that I butchered. I do plan on eventually getting them right. And I want to thank everyone for following along for the 19-20 minutes of this piece as we navigate through this tournament one day at a time. I do hope all is well, and I'll catch you with more tomorrow. Thanks for listening to this piece, and I'll catch you with more soon. Peace out.